Welcome back. President Biden's massive spending and higher tax agenda. The administration has proposed a $6 trillion budget for fiscal year 2022, potentially taking the United States to its highest level of spending since World War II. The administration is planning to pay for their progressive spending proposals through significant tax increases. Joining me right now is American Action Forum President, former CBO Director, and former McCain campaign advisor, Douglas Holtz-Eakin. Doug, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. I want to get to the budget with you. But first, give us your assessment of the broad economy today. Pretty good op-ed this morning in the Journal about the economy coming back and growth on the horizon this year as well as next year. Why do we need all this spending if the economy is doing just fine on its own?
We really don't. This has been a mystery to me why there's all this talk about stimulus. We're having a tremendous recovery, and the reason we're having a tremendous recovery is this has been a recession unlike any other we experienced. It wasn't the 20th century where incomes fell. It wasn't a 21st century where we saw big wealth destruction like the dot-com bubble or the financial crisis. What we saw was the coronavirus stopped people from spending. They couldn't go to restaurants, they couldn't get onto airplanes, couldn't stay in a hotel. And now that that's receding, the economy's coming back just fine. And the private sector has expanded payrolls throughout 2020 and will continue to do that. And what we're seeing more than anything else is supply-side shortages. We've heard a lot about the supply chain, a lot about the lack of workers, and that's the only thing holding the economy back. This isn't a world where we need lots of big government spending to make the economy grow. It's doing just fine.
So what's your take on the budget? Let's talk about the president's $6 trillion budget. There was an op-ed in the Journal yesterday saying Biden's slow growth budget gamble, where they're laying out a scenario of a sugar high. You've got lots of money being thrown at the economy, and you're getting growth for 2 years, but then it is slowing down to 1% to 2% growth for the following 8 years. Your assessment of President Biden's $6 trillion budget?
This is really a stunning document that I don't think has gotten the attention it deserves. It's not that it's proposing $6 trillion for the next fiscal year. It's proposing the highest level of federal spending as a fraction of our economy, as a fraction of GDP, for any 10-year period in our history, including World War II. So this is a big spend, big government budget. It's got lots of taxes in there, $3.6 trillion. That gives us the highest level of taxation as a fraction of GDP over any modern 10-year period. And despite that, it doesn't add up. They're going to borrow an additional $1.5 trillion in federal debt over the next 10 years. So you've got big government, you've got big taxes, you've got big borrowing, but you have no growth. And so this is a vision where prosperity is in the government. It's not a vision consistent with our history and our principles where economic freedom and private enterprise drives the standard of living. It's a vision of making the government bigger and having people rely on it. And I think it's worth really pointing that out because it's not just the numbers, it's the philosophy that you're seeing in that budget.
So let's talk about that because the priorities are very much about the president's green economy vision. And that will mean lots of extra costs for a number of industries. Walk us through what you see as most striking.
Well, I think the really striking thing is, the president has said climate is the #1 priority. Fine. So presidents have their priorities. How do you go about reaching those objectives? If you want to do something in America, make it a priority for American business, and it will happen. There's no question. Harness the marketplace, provide incentives to produce renewables, carbon sequestration, all the elements that people talk so much about. But they're not doing that. They're saying, OK, we'll do the command and control regulatory approach. Everyone knows this is more expensive, and it won't work. We will not get to a zero carbon electricity grid by 2035. There's no way that's feasible. So they've set an objective that's too ambitious. It can't be done. They're using the wrong tools, and that's a recipe for additional damage to the economy at a time when we're trying to recover.